You are in for a real treat with this beautiful project for today. So we are working on this gorgeous carousel, and I want to show you guys all of the details of how this came to life. So I am using this butter cookie tin box, and we're going to be using this as the base of our project. But first, let's go ahead and start modeling the beautiful horses that you guys saw in there. I'm going to be using this Sculpey air dry clay that I bought from Walmart. I went ahead and cut out just a random horse design on the internet, and I found this one and I was able to print it out. I printed out 4 of them because that is how many horses I'm going to be making, but truthfully I only really needed 1 or 2 of them because I'm going to be using a graphite technique where I trace it with my pencil and I lay it flat onto my air dry clay so that it can give me like kind of a line mark so that I can trace it out. So this is the horse that I found was the nicest for the project, so that is exactly what I ended up going with. So choose whatever style of horses that you want, and I thought that this one would fit the project really nicely, so I'm just going over it with this pencil and making sure that I have enough line markings for this project. So as you guys can see here, I'm using the air dry clay. This was my first time working with this type of clay. I'm just going to be molding it in my hands and making sure that it is nice and soft and ready to use. One other technique that I'm going to be using here is I'm going to be using these popsicle sticks to be able to roll out my clay, and this ensures that I have the same thickness for the horses that I'm going to be making. So when my clay is nice and flat, I just roll it out onto the design, and you guys can very lightly see the pencil marks. I'm just going to be using an X-Acto knife to be able to trace that out. So that is why I ended up tracing it with my pencil. This technique works absolutely beautifully. So I didn't have any horse molds, so I decided to just make it myself. And you guys can see just how easy that is to be able to kind of trace it with a pencil and make your own markings. The X-Acto knife worked really nice here. It gave me precise cuts to be able to trace out the horse, and was able to kind of go around those really gentle curves, and you guys can see just how beautiful that's turning out. So let's go ahead and see the rest of that. Okay, so as you guys can see, this is what the horse turned out to look like. I ended up making 4 more of those, but before I let it dry, I went ahead and stabbed these little tiny skewers through them, little bamboo sticks, so that obviously I will be able to stick them into the carousel later on. So make sure that before you dry them, you do this, because otherwise you're going to have to drill it through, and that's going to be too much work. So I'm going to go ahead and just kind of clean it up a little bit, and then go ahead and continue making the rest of the horses. So once again, the best way to be able to get this technique to work is to use your pencil to trace on the back of that printed paper and then kind of go back over it. So here I just wanted it to transfer just a little bit better with a little bit of line indentation. and so I just kind of went over it. This time it went a lot better. So if your graphite pencil isn't transferring as well, you can also do this technique, which is absolutely beautiful. Because the figurine parts of a carousel are absolutely important. So you want to make sure that you get that technique down. And once you do, everything will come together absolutely beautifully. So working with this air dry clay from Walmart, it was my first time doing so. And I don't know if I would recommend it. It was a little hard to work with just because it had more of like a paper mache sort of texture to it rather than a clay texture, but either way I ended up making it work, and this is what the 4 horses look like, which is absolutely beautiful. Okay, so continuing with the rest of the project, I wanted to add an elevated platform to the top of the tin box because it does have a little bit of an indentation on the cover. So I thought of using some foam board to be able to kind of add that platform on top. And the foam board is also going to allow me to be able to stick the figurines onto the carousel a lot easier. So I'm going to do 2 circle pieces of foam board so that I can add it to the top, and this is going to give me a nice place to be able to stick those horses. So I'm just going to glue those 2 circles together, and then before gluing them to the tin, I'm going to go ahead and wrap it with this beautiful red velvet fabric. And you guys will see I'm going to be able to just cut that out and make sure that it is nice and tight. So to be able to attach the fabric to the pieces of foam that I cut out, I just went around and sewed that, and it gave me a nice and firm hold to it. And then I used some double-sided tape to stick those 2 together. So next, I'm also using this piece of rope around the edging to kind of give it a more beautiful border, and I absolutely love the silver look. It came out really, really nicely, and I really like how the design and shape of it came out. So once we're done with the platform here, we're going to start with the cone, more like the tent top of the carousel. I just used a round piece of cardboard and I cut a slit in the middle to create the cone shape for the top of this carousel. So you guys will see just how I was able to kind of manipulate this. I'm also using a foam piece to be able to add to it so that it can hold and give it more of like a platform so that I can stick things onto it and kind of give the carousel structure. So I'm just using my hot glue gun here, as you guys can see, to kind of make all of that come together. And so far this project is going really well. Next, all I'm going to do is go ahead and paint the horses. I'm giving them kind of like a black tail, making sure to paint the hooves, and making sure that all of that comes together. So keep on watching and I will show you guys just how to continue making this project as beautiful as possible. Okay, so now that the most stressful part of this project has come to an end, which is the horses, I am so glad to have gotten that out of the way. Now I'm working on the covers for the bamboo sticks that I have going through the horses. Since the horses have now dried, those bamboo sticks are going to stay on there for a good amount of time. So I've just permanently glued them in there. So these are going to act as the covers for that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to insert these straws from the top and the bottom so that it can give me a beautiful look for the carousel. Next, I am making a border for the top of the cone. I ended up just kind of working out this design here, and then I'm tracing it onto another piece of cardstock or cardboard paper. It's a little bit thinner. So yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and cut that up and make sure that it fits around my cone. So I'm gonna have to make 2 of them just so that I can connect them. And so yeah, this is what this design is going to end up looking like. And so far we have to go ahead and take a look at everything that we've just made. So we have the horses done. The top of the cone is ready to be painted and decorated. The base of the carousel is all done. And so now we are ready to jump into kind of getting everything ready for setup. So for the horses, I'm going to be using this polyacrylic coating over the horses. Now, this is absolutely the best way to be able to give your air dry clay shine. So this gives the look of epoxy resin without all the toxic fumes, and it is so much easier to use. So I just grabbed the brush and now I'm just kind of brushing it over the horses, and it's going to give you this beautifully glazed look without sacrificing your time and energy to have to mix any kind of potion to make like the perfect ratio. So this is really going to help you out. And here you're just going to see me just kind of getting both sides of the horses. And then I also finally decorated the rest of the straws, as you guys can see here, and it is turning out absolutely beautifully. Next, I'm going to be working on this rope here. I'm going to be using this at the top of the cone, but first I need to kind of paint it black. Or silver, sorry. I'm going to be using this paint here to be able to paint that the color. So I'm going to use some gloves here and make sure that I am coating the entire body of this rope in this silver color so that it can match the silver that was at the bottom of the carousel base. Next, we're jumping into the top of the cone. So I'm going to be painting this red, and later down in the video when I'm giving you guys the final result, you will see that I actually ended up changing this into a silver color because the red, it was nice, but also I feel like silver would be a lot more polished. So but yeah, keep on watching and you guys will be able to see that. But I'm just using this beautifully bright red color that is just going to pop with this project. So here I wanted to give you guys a little bit of information on how I was able to do this piece. So the entire circle, I closed it to be 30 inches. And then these gaps here that I have are 10 inches. So I broke it up into 3 sections, and they were 10 inches wide. And then now I'm just cutting them in half, or not really cutting them, but dividing them in half and getting 5 inches in between that to be able to make different sections at the top for a beautiful tent design. So if any of that made no sense to you guys, go ahead and ask me some questions down in the section below. I wanted to not kind of take too long explaining this. It is pretty self-explanatory. If you guys want like a slower version of this, let me know and I will be glad to repost it. But essentially what I did was in those 5-inch gaps that I sectioned out, I'm just painting part of it red to make a fancy design, and then in the other portions I'm going to be adding some beautiful fabric to it. So you guys will see just how that was going to come out like. So I'm just using this red paint to it doesn't have to be neat because I'm going to be adding fabric to the other side, but I'm just using the red paint to make the beautiful tent look. And the fabric that I'm going to be using again is the same red velvet that I used on the base of the carousel, and this is going to turn out beautifully. And yeah, I really enjoyed this project. This was my first time making a carousel, and when I tell you guys this is truthfully honest. I love sharing these ideas with you guys, and I wanted to challenge myself this year to be able to make some more creative ideas. I really love the vintage Christmas look, so I thought that this carousel kind of brought that feeling to it. So next here, I'm going to be working on my fabric, and I'm going to be cutting them into the little triangles that you guys saw here at the top of the cone. So I'm just using a ruler and then a just kind of like a rotary cutter. I think that's what you call it. I'm not really sure, but it's a little roller cutter, and this makes cutting the fabric a lot easier. So I'm going to be attaching the fabric to the top of the cone using some wood glue, and what I'm going to do is just to use a brush to just kind of water down the wood glue a little bit, and then adding that to the top of the cone. So you guys will see just how beautifully that turns out. Yeah, I was really glad with how this turned out. I had a couple of minor issues here and there, but not too many. The only issue I had was with the fabric and not cutting it to the right size of the triangles, but eventually I figured it out. What I love is that using stretchy velvet fabric will definitely give you a little bit of grace when it comes to kind of stretching it out. So that is exactly what I did here. And when you're using wood glue for this fabric, it glues down really fast. So you want to kind of work at in a timely manner. But yeah, so I'm just cutting off the excess pieces here at the bottom, and I'm just gonna trim that out. And this is what the top of our cone is looking like. Super beautiful. So I'm gonna be using the cord that we painted earlier, the gray cord, to be able to attach that to the top of the cone. So I'm just using my hot glue gun to be able to do that. And then for the excess cord, we're going to take care of that later. I'm just going to cut it and make sure to kind of adjust it later on when we add the border. But next, we're going to be using some of the air dry clay to create some ornate pieces. I wanted to go very vintage with this carousel, so this is why I kind of chose some of the styles that I did. And I really love these ornate pieces here that I'm going to add to the top of the carousel. So keep on watching, you guys. This project is definitely coming together really beautifully. So I hope that you guys are getting lots and lots of great ideas when you guys see this. Okay, so now I am starting to decorate the edge of the border that we created for the top of the cone, or so to speak, the tent of the carousel. So I'm just using some puffy paint here that I bought from Walmart. Also, I can link some of this stuff down below for you guys to be able to get from Amazon if you want to support the channel. And yeah, this helps you guys have access to some of the materials that I'm using for the project. But either way, I ended up gluing this mini little jar. This is the centerpiece of this project. So yeah, I ended up gluing it to the top of the carousel. I glued the lid of the jar there. And then next we're going to be adding the horses to the top of the platform that we created. And I'm just sticking those into the foam boards that we laid underneath the red velvet. And so, yeah, I'm just going to be making sure to kind of line them up. There's no rhyme or reason to really make them like perfectly straight, but I just wanted to kind of lay them out as evenly as possible just because that was kind of my preference. I'm just using this ruler here to help me kind of have a guideline of where to lay them. And then I'm using some hot glue to obviously kind of stick them down in there once I found a permanent spot for them. And yeah, I made sure to measure the tops so that they wouldn't kind of bother the top of the carousel, so that everything would blend in seamlessly. And this is what it turned out to look like. And then of course I'm making sure that the jar is able to sit perfectly in the middle of those. And here is a front angle of the carousel so far. And so right now I'm going to be grabbing the jar, and the nice thing is you can access this by just unscrewing it from the top. Sorry, I didn't really have anything to show you guys how I did that, but here I'm using some glycerin and some water to be able to kind of make a beautiful kind of glitter snow globe effect in the middle. And yeah, I'm just mixing those two components together. It's a 1-to-1 ratio, but I just kept adding the water to glycerin and making sure that everything looked okay. And so yeah, I'm just mixing that with a bamboo stick, and then I'm going to add in my glitter. And so yeah, this was my favorite part of the project, honestly. It was so fun to be able to mix this together, and I thought that this made a beautiful centerpiece. One little mistake that I did make here, though, is that I used these really big glitters, and they kind of sunk to the bottom and didn't really float. So I would say that next time, definitely make sure to use mini ones, like, you know, finer glitter. But anyways, let's go ahead and decorate these ornate pieces. So I wanted to do the technique where you kind of stain the piece black and then you add silver on top of it in order to kind of make it pop a little bit. It was a little rough to be able to kind of adjust these properly. I definitely think I should have painted them before I put them on top, but either way, I ended up trying to make it work. So I am using my brush to kind of make these look metallic, and then I'm going to try to adjust my ribbon, and here is the final look. As I explained earlier, I went ahead and changed up the border that I created with some spray paint. I like the silver a lot better. I think that it matched the color scheme a lot better. So I went ahead and detached it, painted it, and then reattached it on top. And I think that it turned out absolutely beautiful. It pulled out the puffy paint look and it gave it this wonderful color. So enjoy the final look.